Have you ever opened an old manuscript and seen something so bizarre it made you question everything you thought you knew about art and history? In the centuries before photography, the medieval imagination filled the blank spaces of the map with wonders. Dragons, cyclops, dog-headed men, and the strangest of all, the headless men known as the Blemmyes. These were said to be real people, tribes living on the edges of the known world, with their faces sunk deep in their chests. They appear again and again in the work of artists, mapmakers, and chroniclers from the 13th to 17th centuries. But who made these images? What did they believe? And what do their pictures tell us about human curiosity, fear, and imagination? The first mention of the Blemmyes comes from Herodotus, around 440 BC. He described headless men with eyes in their breasts, said to live in Libya. Centuries later, Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, repeated the tale in year AD 77. A people without heads, whose mouths and eyes are set in their chests. It's worth noting that there was a real nomadic Nubian tribe called the Blemmyes living near the Nile in what is now Sudan and Egypt. As classical knowledge travelled through the Middle Ages, the names and the myths fused. What may have been exaggerations of real people became monstrous curiosities. By the 1200s, Europe's illuminated manuscripts were rich with images of the monstrous races. The Rutland Psalter, circa 1260, includes one of the earliest surviving depictions of Blemmyes, a naked archer, his face in his chest, calmly aiming his bow. Artists like this were anonymous monks, copying biblical texts and marginal illustrations. But their imagination was vast. The borders of a psalter or bestiary weren't just decoration. They were where faith and fantasy met. When copyists reached a passage about far-off lands, they often filled the margins with pictures of the unknown. Men with dog heads, one-eyed giants, people with feet so large they could shade themselves from the sun. And, of course, the Blemmyes, human yet inhuman. In the 14th century, Sir John Mandeville claimed to have journeyed across Asia and Africa. His book, The Travels of Sir John Mandeville, became one of the most widely read manuscripts in medieval Europe. He described men of foul stature, with no heads, their eyes in their shoulders, and their mouths in the middle of their chests. Artists took him at his word. In illuminated copies of Mandeville's travels, the Blemmyes appear again, drawn with startling detail, muscled torsos, full lips, thick necks that vanish into nothing. One such image from a 14th century French manuscript, now in the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, shows a Blemmyes standing upright among other mythical beings, not as a joke, but as ethnography. By the Renaissance, Europe's curiosity about the wider world was booming. The printing press meant that images of monsters could travel faster than ships. Among the most influential artists to reproduce the Blemmyes were the Italian engravers Giovanni Battista di Cavalieri and Ambroglia Brambilla, both working in Rome in the late 1500s. Cavalieri's 1585 book, Monstruorum Historia, featured dozens of mythic races. His engraving of a Blemmie shows it standing confidently, like a portrait subject from the court of the Caesars. Brambilla followed with even more ornate versions, often surrounded by Latin inscriptions cataloguing their supposed homelands. These artists didn't invent their stories. They codified them, turning oral legends into visual records, merging scientific curiosity with the thrill of the grotesque. In the 16th and 17th centuries, European explorers like Sir Walter Raleigh reported similar creatures in South America. Raleigh wrote of tribes and eyes in their shoulders and mouths in their chests, a clear echo of the ancient myth. Cartographers such as Sebastian Munster included the headless men in his Cosmographia Universalis of 1550, in his map of Africa. The margins teem with monsters, cyclops, satyrs, and the Blemmyes, carefully labelled and placed in Ethiopia. Artists of this era, Munster's woodcutters, Cavalieri's engravers, and even the map illustrators of Ortelius, weren't merely fantasists. They were the visual journalists of their time, filling in the blank corners of the world with whatever information or rumour reached them. The Blemmyes weren't confined to Europe. In the Islamic world, the scholar Zakaria al-Zawini wrote The Wonders of Creation in the 13th century, richly illustrated with all manner of extraordinary beings. Headless men appear alongside other marvels of the earth, portrayed less as monsters and more as divine curiosities. These works reveal a crucial difference. Where European artists used monsters to define what lay outside Christendom, Islamic artists treated them as evidence of God's infinite creativity. In the medieval mind, the head was the seat of reason, and to lack one was to lack rationality. Thus, the Blemmyes symbolised the dangers of living without faith or intellect, a warning, not just a curiosity. Art historians suggest that many of these drawings were cautionary tales, dressed as ethnography, reminders that beyond the bounds of civilization, strange and godless beings might dwell. But there's another layer, the fascination with anatomy, difference and diversity. In their own way, the Blemmyes represent the earliest attempts at anthropology. Distorted, certainly, but rooted in a desire to understand the human condition in all of its forms. Most of the creators of Blemmie imagery remain anonymous, working in scriptoria or engraving workshops. But through their hands we glimpse a transition, from the monkish illustrator of the Rutland Psalter, painting in candlelight, to the Renaissance printmaker like Cavalieri, working under papal patronage, to the enlightened map engineer mass-producing knowledge for a literate public. Each drew the same myth, but with a different motive: fear, wonder, and finally, curiosity. By the 18th century, science had overtaken myth. Natural historians like Carl Linnaeus no longer classified monsters, but the Blemmyes never vanished entirely. They survived in folklore, in Shakespeare's Othello. even in C.S. Lewis's Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Their haunting images live on, not as facts, but as artifacts of imagination. So, what can we learn from the artists who painted the headless men? That imagination has always filled the gaps where knowledge fails. That every age creates its own monsters to explain the unknown. And that even the strangest of myths, when drawn with care, can reveal as much about us as about the world we once believed lay beyond. If you enjoyed this journey into myth and art, please subscribe. And stay tuned for more stories from the edge of history